So let's come back right here. This query, I really don't want this to be a property. Okay, so we're going to just undo what I did here. So I'm going to just roll back. Okay. So I'm going to remove this, and then we can just continue. So after we prepare the query, we can now say this statement should be equal to this execute. So we don't have this method yet, but we are going to create it shortly. So this execute, and what we want to execute will now be the query. So we want to execute the query. Yeah, so we execute the query, we set the statement to be equal to the result of that execution, and then we just continue to do what we want to do. So that means we're going to have some method that will help us to really retrieve the results. Okay, so now we have the statement populated after execution, and then we can use method chaining to get the results. Okay, so let's come back here. Then I'm going to get rid of these two. And right now, we now need to really create all the abstract methods that we need here. So I'm going to say abstract public function get. Okay, so what get will do for us is we will be able to get all of the result sets. We'll get everything, okay? And then we're also going to have one which is called count. This is going to help us to get a count of the record set. So how many data do we have inside of the results? Okay, and then we're going to have a few more. This will be last inserted ID, and then this is going to be prepare, and then prepare will take a query, and then this will be execute, and the execute will take a statement. And then I'm going to add one more method. We will not be using it for now, but we're going to use it later when we actually start creating our models. Okay, fetch into, and then this is going to take a class name. So the reason why we're going to need this is to actually do mapping. So we can map record directly from the database to a specific object, and then we can just dynamically get all of the data. Okay, which is the beauty of object-oriented programming. So the other methods that we'll need here will be public function create. So our create will take an array of data, and then it will persist into the database. So we will have create. We're going to also have update. So that'll be public function update. Update will also take an array of data and then populate the database. So right now we also going to have a delete, function delete. And then for delete, we're not going to pass in any argument. And this is really going to be a simple method. So we'll come back to that later. So we're also going to have a public function raw. So this function allows us to just execute a single SQL query, okay? A raw SQL query. It has nothing to do with all of the weird clause that we wrote previously. It's just going to be direct execution of the query, and then we can chain on to get the data the way that we want to get it. And then we're going to have a few more methods here, okay, just to satisfy the diagram. As you can see, I've already introduced new ones, okay? So let's create a few more. This will be to find. We want to find record in the database, and then whenever we want to find a record in database, we want to restrict that to be the ID. So if I want to find a specific record and I pass it the ID for a specific table, so if I say this table find and then pass it an ID, it's going to return that ID from that table. Okay, so this is pretty simple to write. So public function find one by. So if we say find one by, then this is going to be the more loose one. So this will be, we're going to say this should be a string, which should be the feed, okay, and then the value. So the value should be missed. So we cannot put a type there. So find one by report type, for example, and then specify the value. And then we're going to have another one, public function first. So when we have our result set from the database, we can just use this method to get the first one, okay? All right, so our class is pretty much put together. We still have a lot of code to write, a lot of methods to implement, but right now we can pretty much say that we are actually in a good place.